Hi everybody. I'm Oyo, one of the TAs in this course. I'm glad to talk about Hawthorne's Young Goodman Brown with you today. And I made a brief PowerPoint for this, so hope this helps your understanding of the story. Okay, this is the contents today I'll talk about. And first of all, I'll briefly talk about Hawthorne and his style. Actually, Young Man Brown reminds me of a couple of other works of him, so I'd like to explain his style with his other two works in the section one. And in section two, we'll see the important historical background of the story, which is called the Salem Witch Trials. It is known that Hawthorne's ancestor was involved in this witch trial, and Hawthorne himself was also ashamed of his family history. So understanding the Salem witch trial should be important in understanding story. And third, I want to focus on the names in the story. You should understand that Young Man Brown is written as an allegory, right? already defines that allegory is let me see, a story, play, picture, etc., in which each character or event is a symbol representing an idea or a quality, such as truth, evil, death, etc. The use of such symbols. Yeah, so it means reading the story needs a kind of analysis, right? I mean, it demands your own interpretation. So I just want to offer you a couple of questions about the meaning of the name. Here, we'll focus on the meaning of good man and its moral implications or moral irony. And in the chapter 4, we'll see how the story can be an example of the story of the construction of America. I think Younger Man Brown is not just a religious allegory, but it poses a question about what Americanism is. Here you can see Native Americans, women, and various different religious identities. So I think we will see how they are represented and we will think about the meaning of being Puritan and being an American. So let's start. Okay, in the first section, we'll see briefly about Hawthorne and his style. I don't want to deal with his biography here, but I want to focus on his style very briefly. Um, One of the significant styles Hawthorne enjoying is the gap or the rupture between inside and outside. For example, at the left side of the screen, you can see the novel titled The Black Bear Romance. In this work, in this novel, Hawthorne depicts some antinomic or kind of self-contradictory characters. For example, there's a character there's a character named Hollingsworth, and Hollingsworth is depicted as a philanthropist, but he implicitly shows his obsession with his own community, his own version of the future, and his own version of the world. So yeah, and likewise, there is a female character named Zenobia. Zenobia is a character who represents early feminists. However, she paradoxically shows her inner weakness in contrary to her external strong energy. So, one of the most important literary devices in Hawthorne's works is the veil, as you can see at the right side of the screen. Veil creates the difference between one's inner and external characteristics. That means weakness can be veiled by strongness, and love can be veiled by hate, and the evil can be veiled by good. So I think this veil is also operating in Younger Man Brown. In Younger Man Brown, one of the interesting point is how the hidden evil is revealed. Yep, and I'd like to talk about the Salem witch trials. And actually, the Salem witch trial was known as the historical background of the story. So we'll briefly see what it was and how it affects Hawthorne's work. According to Wikipedia, the Salem witch trial were A series of hearings and prosecutions of people accused of witchcraft in colonial Massachusetts between February 1692 and May 1693. So on January 20, 1692, a woman named Betty Paris suffered from mental disease, and her doctor, William Griggs, could find no physical evidence of any ailment, but other young women in the village began to exhibit similar behaviors. So I think it might be a kind of like the symptoms like mass hysteria, but anyway, the court saw them witches. So they were tortured, and one girl named Tituba confessed that she cursed other women and conspired with other women for this witchcraft. So eventually, 13 women and 6 men were executed by hanging. So these trials made a huge turbulence in the Salem community, and Hawthorne's family was one of the important figure, important, uh, how can I say, family in this tragic incident. Yeah, so Nathaniel Hawthorne's ancestor, William Hawthorne, was a judge in Salem trials. So Nathaniel Hawthorne feels the guilty about sharing the same blood with him. And also, it is known that Hawthorne thought that this tragedy stems from the distorted Puritan belief. So we can see a lot of implications of witchcraft and Puritanism in the story. I mean, in young Goodman Brown. And here I want to emphasize again that the story is written as an allegory. So it demands us to interpret its symbols. So you have to analyze the text by yourself. So I will not offer you my analysis here, but I just want to give you some discussion points. First of all, the names in the story is really interesting to me, and it makes me think a lot of Puritan ethics. So let's see the passage here. There may be a devilish Indian behind every tree, said Goodman Brown to himself, and he glanced fearfully behind him as he added, what if the devil himself should be at my very elbow? Yeah, so in this passage, one of the interesting points here is that Brown is scared, right? He fears Native Americans, and these Native Americans are depicted as a threat from nowhere or a threat from everywhere. Here you can see kind of colonial stigmatization, right? He follows the colonial stereotype and says that Native American is a devil. And here we can also see the cultural confliction between Native Americans and colonizers. So the passage is written in religious allegory, like the conflict between Puritan goodness and pagan evil, but it also includes a very secular history of America. And once he talks about the devil, he encounters one man. So yeah, he is devil. Maybe he's Satan. Anyway, the devil says that I helped your grandfather, the constable, when he lashed the Quaker woman so smartly through the streets of Salem. Yeah, so I think this is quite a very important phrase because what he talks about is the possibility of evil in Brown's Puritan family history. Brown was proud of his honest Puritan family blood before this sin, but the devil points out that no, maybe not. Maybe your family has a very dark history. So he points out that Puritanism might not be so pure than Brown thinks. And we should also know that Brown's errand seems not really good, right? Even though we don't know what exactly it is. At the passage of the bottom of the screen, you can see that Brown has scruples. We don't know what it is, but it is sure that he is doing something not based on his Puritan belief because he feels guilty. So I think here Hawthorne depicts the rupture between seeming pureness and its self-contradiction. Okay, as I told you, I think the story is not just about the religious allegory. Rather, to me, Young Man Brown is an allegory of the construction of America. So I want to remind you of that history is always established in blood, and I think this story is also expressing it. So, for example, we can see how Native Americans are represented in the story. As we saw above, they are represented in evil figures everywhere in the forest. So here, trees and plants in the forest is not separated from Indians. So I think the antagonism against Native American and the dark forest itself remind us of the colonial logic, which sees the land and indigenous people as the object of conquer. And here I have to say that in colonialism, nature and indigenous people are frequently juxtaposed and they create the binary image between the civilized and nature, and the colonizer and the colonized, and the Christianity and pagan. So if we see the work as an allegory of the construction of America, we can see that Hawthorne tries to criticize I mean, criticize colonialism in American history. Actually, it is not sure whether Hawthorne tries to aim at colonialism, but for me, Youngman Brown definitely portrays the dark history of American colonialism here. And we can also see women figures in the story. Hawthorne has been frequently criticized because in many works of him, female characters are depicted very helplessly, powerlessly. And I think this criticism is quite plausible. Let's see Faith, Brown's wife. Brown calls her a blessed angel on earth, and Brown thinks that she is troubled with dreams and thoughts. So Faith is a kind of idealized figure of a woman, and the pure woman who embodies the Christian faith, right? So she must stay inside of the house while Brown must go outside. So I think this contradiction is very important because the contradiction between inside and outside represent the difference of place between the two genders. For men, his proper place is outside the house. And for women, their place must be confined to inside the house. So we can see that the story follows the typical gender norm at the time. And I think it would be also interesting if we can see the gender norm with Christianity and colonialism at the same time. Okay, let's stop here. And I just want to talk about the two discussion questions this way. Yeah, so I try to make my video that can help you to understand the discussion question, and the question needs your interpretation. So I want you to think about ethics and the construction of America, especially. As the title of the story implies, young man Brown demands us to think about what good man is. So what is the condition of good man? And this would be such an interesting question about the story. And another question is about the construction of America. So there will be a passage, but you don't have to limit yourself to that passage. So it'd be much interesting if you will pick your own passage and think about this relationship. Thank you.